I see people all the time recommending you skip The Witcher 1. They say it's a very dated game, that it's a game with lackluster combat, poor presentation, and for the most part, they're not wrong. But I've played games with great action, way prettier graphics, probably 10 times the budget, but didn't come anywhere near the level of life and atmosphere I experienced in The Witcher 1. And I don't regret a minute of my 60 plus hours I spent with this game. If you love RPGs or are a fan of CD Projekt RED and The Witcher 3, then to me, you should play this game. Even if you played The Witcher 3 beforehand like me. The first part of this video will be me explaining why you should play this game with as little spoiling as possible, very much speaking in generalities. The second part of this video is a more in-depth look at the game for those who have played it. It's part analysis, part discussion, and part just reliving the world again. I'll have timestamps for that below. 'Look, there's a reason why Cyberpunk 2077 is one of the most highly anticipated games of all time. CD Projekt RED came as close to fulfilling the potential power games possess as we've seen. The Witcher 3 is a fun, entertaining, immersive, emotional piece of interactive art. The people in Poland are transcending the medium. They treat their work with respect.
One thing which I hope is visible, we are not a games factory. We treat games as an art, and we want to push the bar higher with every single game release. So it's not about getting Witcher 3.5 out there, which would be fairly easy. Of course, it's still very difficult, but I know using the same engine, telling the same stories, the technology is established, and making a quick dollar. That's not about it. That's why we are working on CP right now, and I think this will open a lot of new possibilities for us, and we'll learn a lot in due course, and then we'll able to take this learning and hopefully work on more great stuff. So ultimately, it's about delivering new amazing gaming experiences with stories and pushing the gaming and the gameplay further.
4 years removed from playing The Witcher 3, I'm yearning for another round of Gwent. But I'm going to do it right this time, and immerse myself into the lore. When I played it 4 years ago, I didn't know much about the world, the characters, the history, none of that. And yet, I was still hooked. It was that good. But this time, I'm playing the first few games before it, and also reading some of Sapkowski's work, so that I can have a true appreciation for the universe. And so a couple weeks ago, I started at CDPR's game development roots, experiencing The Witcher 2007 for the first time. The game possesses that abstract, indescribable RPG aura that only the truly great games have. It's the Witcher world introduction I wish I had before The Witcher 3. But with that being said, a lot of the side characters and stories in this game, according to the Witcher wiki, don't really show up in the later games. Not even the main story is all that important, if at all, in the later games. There's one important thing at the end of the first game that leads into the second game, but that's about it. The rest of the carryover seems to be mostly Easter eggs. And from what I read, there's definitely nowhere near the carryover you get from Witcher 2 to Witcher 3. That means if you played the others in the series but not this one, then don't worry. it's still going to feel like its own modular experience to you, which is actually probably a good thing if you played the others already. In retrospect, I would have loved to start with this game because it does a great job of introducing you to Geralt and Geralt's world. And of course, all of this is originating from Sapkowski and his books, and Sapkowski's influence on the game's incredible tone can't be overlooked. As someone currently reading The Last Wish, the tone from the book and the game, they feel so similar. Sapkowski's ability to create such rich imagery in his words had to have helped in the creative process for CDPR. The atmosphere of this game is probably what is most praised.
I was reading the books and I'm a huge Sapkowski's fan, but then the game appeared on the market and I was really waiting for it. And I start playing with hope that finally it will be like a really good Polish game, right. And that I will feel the same atmosphere like I had in the books. And it was like that. I remember that I fall in love with the game from the beginning, like hours and hours with that game, and I finished it once and then another one, and it was like a perfect like an adventure, and it was really amazing. Like it started with everything. Like it starts everything.
What was it you liked? What was it, the sort of the same rich Slavic lore that was in the books, or was it the questing, or the? Everyone says atmosphere.
Atmosphere, exactly. I don't know how to explain that, because what is atmosphere? Like music, colors of the game, maybe some plot, but to be honest, if you want to point it out, you don't know exactly what is it. Right. But it is. Like The Witcher 1 was in my opinion, the most Sapkowski game like we did in the STP.
Right. Very broadly speaking, what was it about the first game that you enjoyed?
Mostly the atmosphere before anything. I remember starting it, I don't even know if I can say it, like 3 times before I finally went, all right, let's play this through. I needed a bit of time to warm up to it. Yeah, just the atmosphere. I remember being completely captivated by it. You get back to it, you stop playing, and I still found myself thinking about it, having the music play in my head, and just generally the vibe of the place, so dreary in some parts, but like the nice kind. I felt very, very authentic.
That last point made about what is atmosphere got me thinking about the question, and so I did some research and came across a GDC talk about the topic from Greg Casavin, former editor-in-chief at GameSpot and designer at Supergiant Games. Here's something he said that I think helps explain Sapkowski's influence on the incredible atmosphere in The Witcher 1.
Certain authors are so good at creating atmosphere that you can practically feel it just from seeing their names spelled out on the page. So in the case of a guy like Lovecraft here, he got like Gothic horror down to a science. He is like, you look up, if the dictionary had an entry for Gothic horror, he could have his picture there. A handful of authors like him have defined such a specific and strong atmosphere that it's become influential across media. The strength of the original specific idea for the tone, I think, is very important because, again, it can substantially influence crafted content and decisions on how to make a different work.
The talk was pretty illuminating, and I have some takeaways from it that help me better explain the atmosphere in The Witcher. I totally recommend you guys watch it, but I'll focus more on what I got from that and my takes from it in the spoiler part. Alright, so let's address the combat once and for all. First off, you can play in over-the-shoulder mode, or you can play in isometric mode. I played in over-the-shoulder mode, so that's all I can speak for. Second, let's make no mistake about it. The combat is clunky. It's this odd amalgamation of old-school RPG combat and the newer combat of the time, and your opponent could be flying at you from the sky, and you still manage to hit them and teleport them back to the ground. I mean, it's really weird, but it's actually a bit more enjoyable than I expected going in. From all I heard, I had expected it to be completely a disaster, and prior to playing it, the bar was set really low. So that might be for me why I wasn't as turned off. You have cool animations of Geralt that play when you're attacking, dodging, and leaping over opponents. That's really cool, and there's really nothing more satisfying than flipping around your sword and finally sheathing it after you've slain your last opponent, watching that piece of filth fall right in front of you. Apparently this ballet-style pirouetting is very much in line with how Geralt fights in the books, and I think it's really cool. Geralt's graceful twists, his twirls, accompanied by the satisfying clings and gushes from your sword slashes, is definitely much more enjoyable than I thought it would be going in. But with that being said, my recommendation is you put this game on easy mode, think of the combat as a means to the rest of the game, and you'll enjoy the game much more if you approach the combat that way. I have something that I feel is an important point to make if you're going to play the game or the series, and this also applies to anyone who is going to recommend the game or the series to someone else. The game and the series at large isn't for everyone. I've recommended it to friends and they didn't enjoy it for whatever the reason. People give up on it because they think it's boring, they don't like the combat, they just didn't vibe with it, but whatever. A lot of the Witcher series has you spending minutes and minutes on end talking with other characters, keeping you away from the action. And some people just don't care for that. That's fine. I think The Witcher requests you respect the world development that goes on in each dialogue and in each moment of travel. A lot of games just can't hit the nail on the head with this, and they push aside world building for more action and more action and more action, in which I think there's diminishing returns. Yes, people today have ever-shrinking attention spans and ever-shrinking free time. That's a fact. But if you can't build a good world to foster the action of the game, then the action feels for naught, and I understand it can work the other way. If there's a lack of action, or the action isn't satisfying, like it might not be for you in The Witcher, then the world can feel for naught. Your levels of tolerance are different from mine. To me, I recommend you at least give the game a try, and once more, you're not going to be playing The Witcher 1 for its amazing combat. You're going to be playing it because you want to embark on an epic adventure in which you learn, you talk, you explore, you meet, you romance, you regret, and you do many more things as you roleplay the life of a professional monster slayer in his quest that takes him to the capital of Temeria. You're going to play this game to experience a truly classic RPG. If you are thinking of playing this game, I have a few less things to tell you before you embark on your adventure. So the first thing is mods. I knew right away that I was going to need a mod for Geralt's walking speed. I know I'll probably get some slack from you purists in the comments saying, oh, you didn't really truly experience the game. Whatever. Don't listen to that stuff. I'll link the mod for you guys if you want to use it below. I was in one of my first fetch quests, and the amount of trekking I had to do to get from one part of the town back to the other, then all the way back again, it was just kind of ridiculous. And it only got worse the next chapter, so yeah, I don't know why old games were opposed to a running mechanic, but nevertheless, it would have been hard for me to get through the game without that mod. While many of the quests feature great writing, great world building, there are old school RPG fetch quests that everyone hates. And this is another thing I want to mention before you play. Just like you're probably not going to play The Witcher 1 for the combat, you're probably not going to play the game for the fetch quests. The good thing is you're going to know which quests are fetch quests from the quest description, and I advise you not to waste your time with them, because the good thing is you don't have to do them. You'll accomplish probably half of them without even deliberately setting out to do so, just by going around the game and its world. And the last thing I want to mention to you before you start, if you decide to start, is the in-game books. They're interesting to read, and they really help me understand a lot about the world, and I recommend you read them. There were a few things that I read in the journal that I wish I was more aware of in The Witcher 3. Some of the examples of what the journal did a great job explaining are the history of Lara Doran, the Elder Blood, why Ciri's important, the attack on Kaer Morhen, other bits of information, each one animating the world just that much more. So I think it's very much worth your time to read those books, and they actually are quite concise, as are all the journal entries for the characters, locations, monsters, and glossary. It's just the tight margins in the game, in the UI, make it look a lot longer than it actually is. So definitely read the books. It'll add to the immersiveness. And that's all I have left to say before I get into the spoilers. So if you're ending the video here, enjoy the ride, my friend. For this second part of the video, I'm going to talk much more specifically about the narrative, the atmosphere, the locations, the characters, the monsters, the vibes, the feelings, everything I got from all the different moments and all the different times throughout the game, the ups, the downs. I'm going to talk about whatever stood out to me, all accompanied by specific examples and hence spoilers. So let's start by talking about the narrative as a whole, and then we can dive deeper into the game act by act. Alright, so let's recap the story in 30 seconds. Your Witcher brethren rescue you after your apparent death and take you back to Kaer Morhen. As you're back in Kaer Morhen, the Salamandra, a group of bandits, come into the Witcher castle and steal the Witcher secrets so that they can give it to Jacques de Aldesberg, the Order of the Flaming Rose leader and Elder Blood holder. He wants to use those secrets to create powerful mutated beings who can survive the White Frost and be commanded by him when the time comes. Of course, you don't know that going in, and you simply just want to track down the Salamandra leader and get the secrets back. You only stumble upon all that stuff later, but as you mourn the loss of Leo, who was one of the Witchers who died in the attack on Kaer Morhen from the Salamandra, you sail to Vizima, where you spend the rest of the game. Track down the Salamandra leader, kill him, then track down Aldesberg, follow him into the White Frost, beat him down until the King of the Wild Hunt comes to take him away because of his Elder Blood, and then you scathe away the King of the Wild Hunt, kill Aldesberg, and reclaim your secrets. Okay. While I was actually spoiled the storyline beforehand, I still thought the story was strong, and I did stay attached to it throughout the game regardless. My biggest gripe is I think the Aldesberg could have been introduced sooner. He was a pretty forgettable villain in my opinion, and I would have preferred they somehow conjoined Javid and Aldesberg into one enemy, then hit you with the King of the Wild Hunt like they did. I know that would have changed the story quite a bit, but the way it stands, neither Javid nor Aldesberg were all that memorable to me. But the chat with the Wild Hunt, the King of the Wild Hunt, is incredibly memorable.
We meet again, Wolf. Have you fulfilled your destiny?
It actually reminded me of Morrowind for anyone who's played that. The Morrowind final moments. Definitely a special interaction that I really thought sealed this game to me as something worth playing. Endings are pretty important and can sometimes almost make or break a game's whole story. Though I know Alvin played a pretty big part in the story, being Jacques and all that, I'm not going to talk much about him because I thought he was a confusing character and an annoying character at that, especially when he follows you around murky waters like a little green gadfly. Let's just try to forget about him, pretend he never existed, and that's my take on the narrative. Good plot, good finish, could have been more impactful with its human villains, but still captivated me. And again, I was spoiled the story beforehand, so take my take on the narrative with a grain of salt. Let's move into talking about the game act by act, and we'll start with the prologue. Some of you might think there isn't much to say about the prologue, and for the most part you're right. It's quite short, and Leo is a throwaway character to my knowledge. He was maybe in the books, I don't know, but you definitely don't get any emotional connection with him. His character just doesn't have enough time to develop for you to really care, at least for me. So while the prologue was short, and while Leo's death didn't really hit me hard, the prologue did accomplish a few important things. First, it introduced me to Geralt's home of Kaer Morhen, giving me a deeper connection with him as a person I'm role-playing. Right? Spending those beginning moments at Kaer Morhen just gives you that extra dose of meaning to Witchers, to Geralt, to his history. As I learned later, the castle was much prettier, but it was attacked by humans persecuting non-humans. So being in Kaer Morhen and seeing it for yourself just adds to that immersiveness. So you watch in a cutscene Vesemir, the Master Splinter of Witchers, training what few Witchers remain in this torn down castle. Then the invasion ensues, and the bandits of Salamandra enter your home, steal your shit, and kill one of your brethren. You can sense the toll it takes on effectively your dad moments later when he rushes in the scene and starts scouring for potions.
What happened? Smashed ribs, punctured lung. He's dying.
He needs White Rufford's decoction. Hang on, Leo. It was here. I can't find it.
Vesemir. Leo is dead.
Then you, your brothers, your father, your romance partner, after the intense battle that you just fought through, having lost so much, gather around Leo's corpse and light it on fire, saying goodbye to yet another Witcher. While Leo's death didn't really hook me, the funeral for some reason did. I wanted to go out and avenge for the Witcher's honor, you know? Knowing I was about to travel to a foreign land and set out on my adventure on top of that is when I really started to become immersed in the game. This is where I want to begin talking about the atmosphere. Immersion and atmosphere go hand in hand, and Greg Cassavan puts it best in his GDC talk.
When we say that atmosphere enhances immersion, it raises the question of what makes for an immersive experience to begin with. And, I think it's fair to say that a game is immersive when it first causes you to suspend your disbelief. You're like, okay, I'm in the world of the game, got it. And then it doesn't do anything to break that sensation. It keeps going like a rock band, multiplier or something like that. So if immersion is this delicate state that can be achieved, I think atmosphere is what helps to sustain that state indefinitely. It keeps you in that moment.
Greg mentions later that atmosphere is comprised of theme, the central idea of a work, and tone, the author's attitude towards the theme. I think we can all agree that the theme of The Witcher is pretty clear. The central idea is you're this mutated monster slayer trying to avenge the wrong that happened to you at Kaer Morhen. But the tone is a bit more abstract of a concept and tough to put into words, quite frankly. I think the best way for me to discuss it throughout this video is to have you relive the moments and have you feel it again for yourself, then talk about how it made me feel. I don't think it's doing the atmosphere enough justice, but this is the best method I can think of for discussing the atmosphere in the game. Please do share with me what you felt during these moments. Maybe the things I point out didn't hit you at all, or maybe they did. Or maybe there is something from an act that I missed that you really liked and hit you, and that you want to share it and talk about it. I'd generally love to hear from you, and like I said, this is supposed to be part discussion. So, I'm going to interact with you, I want to talk with you, and I'm sure I missed a lot of things. Alright, enough game theory. So, we've since left Kaer Morhen, and now we're in the outskirts of Vizima. There's some exposition in the gated region of the outskirts, but it's only moments later that you're able to leave the gates and experience your first moments of openness, a special part of any open game. These first moments of openness are when I really started to notice that there's something special about the atmosphere of this game. Once you leave the gated region, you're left in awe by the gorgeous land that is the outskirts of Vizima. The alluring, fanciful music, all accompanied by the freedom to explore.
From the blood and dents, this armor's a warrior's. But this fatso's more familiar with tankard than sword.
Who goes there?
I'm a witcher, a monster slayer.
Why enter my home armed? I have nothing worth stealing.
Calm down. I've no desire to hurt you. I just need to ask you a few questions.
I don't talk to strangers.
I'm Geralt. Now you know my name.
Have a drink with me, Master Garavant. I detest spies, and we all know spies don't drink.
Let's drink then.
But then there's this sharp foil with chaos. You know there's beasts that lurk in the city, one of which just killed a child's mom at the start of the chapter. There's also a plague going around, leaving homes abandoned and the elderly near mortality. And perhaps what's most grounding is you have imperfect human beings to deal with, like the Fatso. These humans feel so real because while they have serious flaws, they're not evil. They're just flawed human beings, like all of us. So many of these real-feeling people inhabit this world, and you meet so many of them throughout the game. It's a beautiful world filled with not-so-beautiful people, but not so completely ugly people either. Some games will introduce characters in the game that are just way too over the top, especially for its theme and its tone. And that breaks the internal consistency that a game needs if it wants good atmosphere. The three guys that you meet in this area during the framing quest all feel like real people. The priest, the fat guy who inherited all of his money, and the coward gatekeeper that caused his lover to kill herself. They're messed up and they have flaws, but they're still people. I just drank with one of them. Yes, they're cowards for blaming the witch for all their troubles when really they should take ownership for the issues in their lives. But at the same time, the witch isn't perfect herself. She profited off the woman killing herself with a poison. Overall, the people, the beasts, the game's nature and aesthetics, the music, it all makes a beautiful, messy, real feeling world.
He exiled his daughter when she became pregnant. Now she whores herself in Vizima. Heron sold a squirrel to the guards for gold.
You knew but did nothing.
Taverns in every town where your friends reside and where people, despite seemingly barely getting by, are full of bliss.
Who wants to get slapped? Your mother sucks dwarf cock.
To conclude my thoughts on the outskirts, this area doesn't have the same bells and whistles as later parts of the game, but it sets this atmosphere, this amazing atmosphere for the rest of the game. If you want early signs of CDPR's outstanding storytelling ability, or a glimpse of how well CDPR can build a world, look no further than the outskirts. Next, we move into the sewers. We revisit the sewers time and time again throughout the game, but the first time we're in the sewers, we meet Solaire. I mean Siegfried.
Oh, you're a witcher?
Indeed.
White hair, vertical pupils, signs of mutation?
Skip the medical exam.
Forgive me. I meant no harm. I'm Siegfried, a knight of the Order of the Flaming Rose.
I'm Geralt.
I've heard much praise concerning the combat skills of witchers.
If you don't mind, I have some work to do down here, and I'd like to get it done fast.
A cockatrice, correct? That's why I'm here.
Let's talk.
Yes?
What do you know about cockatrices?
Cockatrices, also known as scoffins, are a kind of ornithosaur. They're twice the size of a large bird. The link between reptiles and birds. They resemble roosters, hence their common name.
Go on.
The cockatrice is frequently mistaken for a basilisk, but they're two separate species. Contrary to common belief, the cockatrice's gaze does not turn people to stone, but one should beware of its beak. The monster's beak is apt to tear its opponent's vital organs out with surgical precision. Often, the victim is slain immediately, especially when taken from behind.
So how would you say the beast can be killed?
You'll need to excel at swordsmanship. Without a silver sword, it'll be more difficult. A cockatrice likes to sneak up from behind and attack.
Anything useful to be taken from the carcass?
Its eyes are quite a versatile component, and precious. Its tail feathers are even more valuable.
Impressive knowledge.
I confess my knowledge of monsters ends with the cockatrice. My late father, Ike of Danel, may he rest in peace, left me an engraving of the beast. There were many more engravings, but they were lost inside a manticore's stomach. Only the cockatrice's image survived.
My sympathies. Did you hunt the manticore too?
No, I wasn't at home at the time. When I returned, I discovered my father, despite his infirmity, had decided to fight the manticore. He asked to be tied to a horse, and with a prayer, he charged the beast. As you can surmise, he met a tragic end.
When I reached the site of their struggle, the monster was in horrible pain, seconds from dying. When it could not dislodge my father from his armor, it nearly swallowed the old man whole. Later, they would say the sacred fire in Ike's soul burnt the monster's heart.
A heroic death.
May he rest in peace.
Think you can kill the cockatrice?
The sacred flame will guide me.
What prompted you to enter the sewers after a beast?
It threatens Vizima. The Order's been fighting beasts for a while, rather effectively, too.
Wait, that's Witcher's work.
You Witchers are relics and few in number. You're no competition. The Order demands no payment for protecting humans.
I suppose fairies funded your armor and castles.
I've no desire to argue. We're both here. There's no reason to await the other's turn, especially while there are drowners here too. Let's join forces instead. I long to see your combat skills, and I assure you, my sword is at your disposal.
Agreed. Let's go.
You lead.
Siegfried astounds you with his knowledge of the cockatrice roaming the sewers. You compliment him, he's honest and tells you that's all he knows about the monsters. He shares with you a sad story about his father passing. He demonstrates high moral qualities by telling you that he's fighting the cockatrice to help the people of Vizima. Candidly reminds you the truth about witchers and doesn't shy away from taking your work, but offers to fight alongside you against the cockatrice. Later he helps you get into a new part of the city when the guards won't let you in. So he's proven he's smart, competent, sincere, honest, gets you to feel pity, demonstrates good morals, corrects you candidly, assists you, then assists you again. Briefly jumping forward, CDPR faces you with a tough choice in the middle of the game. Up to that point, you probably like this guy a lot, but do you like him enough to side with him over Yavin? Or are you going to side with Yavin and betray him? In my case, I chose what seemed to me like the lesser of two evils and went against him. Yet during and after the bank robbery, I felt somewhat disgusted with myself that I betrayed Siegfried and his men in the swamps. I chose to go along with the Haven, and now I'm here, sided with bank robbers in the trade quarter bank, and after that moment, I was almost hesitant to walk up to him in Vizima. Choosing the path of the Scoia'tael also meant I had to kill Siegfried near the end, which was easily the most emotional moment in the game for me.
You were wrong to cross me.
You're the one who's wrong.
Stop barking, wolf, and draw your sword.
Do you enjoy working for a madman? Do you murder for pleasure or simply to follow orders?
I need not listen to you. You're not even human.
Siegfried's character and your storylines with him are examples of how to build meaningful and memorable characters in games. How many games have you come across where the developers want you to care about a character and you just don't? Siegfried's character was wonderfully executed. While we're talking about well-executed characters, I suppose this is a good time to also address Geralt formally. We all know who Geralt is, but let's take a deeper dive into who he is in this game, specifically. Geralt, the Monster Slayer, main protagonist, is an honorable, gallant badass. The two swords that make an X behind your back, symbolizing the dirty, deadly job you make a living doing. His tall, muscular stature and his signature long white hair. Women are in love with you, flirt with you, and you plow a ton of them throughout the game. Yet, at the same time, he resembles a chivalrous knight somehow. And Geralt does care about the people in this world despite how he might come off. It takes courage to be a Witcher, and lots of potential Witchers fail in their trials. He has this unpleasant, gritty voice, and barely alters the pitch of it no matter the situation, sort of giving you the impression that not much really phases him. When I played The Witcher 3, I wondered why the voice actor sounded like that. Then I started reading The Last Wish, and it became clear that his voice was meant to sound gritty and unpleasant. He speaks as if he has little fear, and that resonates with you, the one playing him. Because he feels little fear, your level of fear subconsciously shrinks as a result. This is important to note because the game can make you feel uneasy at times. When you're playing something like Dark Souls, you can be scared shitless because the character you're playing as is essentially you. And I'm not saying you're a coward or anything, but you probably don't have Geralt's rich history of courage and might. Regardless of your level of bravery, role-playing as Geralt means you're that much stronger and tougher. It's almost empowering. To me, Geralt is a perfect protagonist for a Homer-like tale filled with monsters and evil beings. Okay, let's get out of the sewers and talk about the Temple Quarter, the Dike, and the Swamp. These three locations are probably where we spend most of the game at. As someone who played The Witcher 3 before this one, it felt quite similar to the contrasting areas of a big sprawling city like Novigrad versus the dark, gloomy, monster-ridden swamp of Velen. The Temple Quarter and the Swamp are a good change of pace, and it's no surprise that the quests in this part of the game have you going back and forth between the two. The issue is that in this game, there is no fast travel. Say what you want about fast travel, but you at least have the option to not use it if you prefer to take the scenic route. Geralt is pretty slow without a mod, and there's a lot of back and forth between the Temple Quarter and the Swamp. And then when you're in the Swamp, you might be far away from the dock you have to take to get back to the Dike, which isn't even the Temple Quarter itself, but the middle ground between you and the Temple Quarter, and then there's a ferryman's annoying dialogue you have to go through every time, and it's just kind of annoying. To me, it's no surprise that a lot of people don't finish the game or even get beyond Act 2. As much as I love this game and its atmosphere, it would have been really tough for me to play through this game without modifying Geralt's speed. Vizima's Temple Quarter is best put from the in-game journal entry. The Temple Quarter of Vizima is strangely reminiscent of a quarrelsome, dirty prostitute who, despite her disagreeable appearance and personality, remains somehow alluring. At first I thought there's no way I'm going to memorize this confusing grid-like town and where everyone lives, but 3 or 4 quests later, I had it pretty much down. One thing that really got me to buy into the Temple Quarter feeling like a real place, beyond the people, which is the biggest reason, and what I'll talk about in just a moment here, was the urban design of it. At the very bottom, you have the sewers. One end of the sewers leads up to the dungeon, another part of the sewers leads up to the slums. Both the dungeon and the slums lead to a plain that is the main area for the people of the city. Beyond the gates of the main area is the trade quarter where the rich people who aren't riddled by the plague reside, protected by tons of guards. There's a rundown church turned hospital in the center of the town used to help treat victims of the plague. And it features nuns reminding you that the church is a place of treating illness because medicine is still a relatively new concept over there. The place feels thought out and it makes sense. I have to say though, it really depressed me being in the church.
We'll all die.
Hearing the old people gasping out, "We will die," was just chilling every time I heard it. I love old people. You can't trust anyone in the Temple Quarter. And as time goes on, you realize you can barely even trust the detective. The one person you can trust is Shawnee, and she's busy helping people with the plague. You're given 6 suspects from the detective: Luvarden, Kalkstein, Ramsmeet, Toller, Vincent, and Vivaldi. You're suspicious of them all until you garner enough information to conclude they're probably harmless. But they all have their own shade of shadiness. Luvarden and Toller are crooked businessmen. Ramsmeet is a drug dealer in the slums. Vivaldi is a short-tempered dwarf dealing with the hostile takeover of his long-lasting family business. Vincent is the smug commander of the Temple Quarter, but suspiciously goes missing at night. And Kalkstein is just, well, Kalkstein.
Tell me more.
Sorry, I got lost in thought.
All of these characters have their own personality, their own mystique. Who can you trust? None of them at the beginning, but we want to learn about them. And just when you think you've learned all there is to know, one of the characters will humble you and make you feel like an idiot.
I guess you plan to continue the investigation.
Don't have a choice.
I can't help officially, but I'll leave you to it. Anything you learn, I'd be glad to hear.
I wanted to talk to you about Salamandra.
Okay.
Someone informed them about my cockatrice contract.
What are you suggesting?
The professor, after you released him.
I got no time. End of conversation.
You let the professor out of prison.
His bail was paid. That's the law.
I get it. Observe the law at all costs. What do you do nights? Meet your boss, Azar Javed?
Nothing unnatural about spending nights in the trade quarter.
Where do you get gold for that?
Don't always need coin to get by.
Wealthy friends? I've got no real proof, so I'll have to wait to decide.
Sounds like your mountain has turned into a molehill. That's what happens when amateurs try their hand at serious work. If you stumble upon any real leads, come by. I'll give you some useful advice.
This was a great example of CDPR grounding you and reminding you that you're not an all-knowing superhero. You're just a witcher. The characters are interesting, and there's so much we don't know about them yet, which creates intrigue. You want to do the quest not for the XP incentive or the main storyline incentive as much as just the incentive of getting to know them better. Having characters like these will make any RPG that much more engrossing. The dike is right on par with Fields in being the prettiest area of the game. We go between the Temple Quarter and the swamp a lot, and there's something nice about just being in the dike and about it being in the middle of the two. It's almost like a pacing break, so you're not constantly jumping between one thing to the next.
The booze is done.
You look not a moment's rest. Abhorrent weather.
There's nothing to do in the dike at all. There's a couple people to talk to, maybe a couple barrels to loot from, but really nothing. Nothing but to marvel at the jaw-dropping scenery that is Vizima's lakeside while you're on its shore. You would certainly have spent less time in this area if there was fast travel. So maybe not having fast travel was actually a blessing in disguise?
Transport services at the best prices.
Take me to the other side.
Times are wasting. Made up your mind? Ready to go?
How many times are you going to ask me that? To the swamp.
If murder, monsters, and psychopaths came together to create a tone, they'd have made something probably on par with the swamps. A lot of us probably recall the frustration we went through there just by hearing the music. It inhabits endless hordes of monsters, has a confusing layout that requires you to circle back around if you approach a section of the map the wrong way, and is home to some of the most finicky quests in the game. But not all great games are easy and intuitive all the time. Sometimes the frustration can be a positive thing for the game, whether you think that in the moment or not. The swamp is a dark, dangerous place, and it's fraught with uncanny people.
Who are you?
A witcher.
Well, well. I thought Leo Bonhart had disposed of your kind.
Never heard of him.
Nor will you again. We all, in this profession, eventually meet someone better than us.
What profession is that?
Bounty hunter. What brings you here?
Hello, son.
I'm not your son, Gramps.
You guessed my name. They call me Gramps around here.
Wonderful. Now we prepare for the coming of the lords.
Who are these lords?
We worship them and receive the grace of those from the eternal deep.
I keep thinking of the fish people. Vodunoi.
How dare you? Those names offend the lords.
One of the most unforgettable moments of the game is visiting the Druid's Grove for the first time.
Welcome to the Druid's Grove, traveler.
Greetings.
Marvelous.
The Druid's Grove is where you meet Yavin. As you probably know, there's 3 different ways you can play this game out. You can side with Siegfried in the Order, you can side with Yavin in the Scoia'tael, or you can be neutral, which I actually didn't know until after my first playthrough, but put that aside. Unfortunately, I knew before I played this game that the Order was up to no good, so that kind of made me realize I shouldn't side with the Order, and I remember Triss telling me to try not to be neutral.
You need to take a stand on the world's problems. It doesn't matter what position, just that you choose one. A strong identity may help restore your memory.
I don't know why, but I instantly had a lot of rapport with Yavin. He just made me think. I respected him.
Why do you hate humans so much, Yavin?
Why? I assume you don't mean ideology and the like, and you would rather hear some dark secret from deep within my soul.
You assume correctly.
I'll answer your question if you answer mine.
Agreed.
I once lived in a city among humans. I was honest and courteous, respected all their ridiculous customs and laws. Assimilation. I lived that word for years, and during that time I was cheated, sneered at, on occasion beaten and robbed. I felt no hatred for humans. In fact, I felt better than them. I told myself they were simply incapable of controlling their weaknesses, their flaws. I was robbed 3 times as often as others. Racist slogans were painted on my door in excrement. For years I wondered why. Was I doing something wrong? What could I do to bring peace to my life? And you know what I came to understand?
No, but I'm sure you'll tell me.
I was doing nothing wrong. I'd been lying to myself from the outset. Just as the moon will never catch the sun, so humans will never change. They will remain egotistical, envious, petty, and fearful of anything they don't understand. And believe me, there's plenty. Matters proceeded quickly thereafter, but that's another story.
Now you resemble humans.
No, Geralt, definitely not. And you, Witcher? Who are you? You too have experienced human ignorance and hatred.
I saw how the humans treated the non-humans firsthand as Geralt. I heard and read about how some of the humans treated Witchers. I read from the in-game books about how the elves built a lot of what the humans ended up claiming for themselves. I had empathy for him and the Scoia'tael. Did I agree with Yavin on everything? No. Do I have regrets about agreeing to his cause? I do, somewhat. And it was apparent to me that I should have rethought siding with him when we were robbing the bank. But this is a brilliantly made game, one that can pull you in different directions. With Yavin, there was a powerful charisma about him. The history of his people and their oppression, it manifested itself through his cause and came out in our dialogue. And our location of conversation, along with that gloomy music that played behind us in the background while we talked, just added to my pity for the elves and kind of coerced me to fighting with him. Our dialogues had me itching to read about and learn about the elves' history. I feel like I keep praising the characters in this game, and it might seem to you guys like I have a boner for CDPR, which I do, but it's for good reason. Not all the characters are interesting, especially not the villains. Dandelion was bad, Alvin should have been scrapped, and I didn't even think Shani or Triss were all that interesting, both of who we'll get to soon. But so many characters were memorable. Yavin was definitely one of them. Eventually you learn that Raymond got killed and that Javed is impersonating him. You collect the 10 Sephiroths, unlock the Mage's Tower, battle the Professor and Javed, hear them tell you they're going to the trade quarter, fall into a coma as a Scoia'tael and the Order battle in the swamps, somehow avoid being in that battle, then magically teleport in Triss's bedroom for the start of Act 3.
Triss, how did I get here?
Pure coincidence.
Okay then. I recall 5 main things from Act 3. The banquet at the new Narrow Court Inn, where you have sex with the half-monster, half-human, full inbred Princess Ada.
Spit it out.
She needs a man to give her a proper lay.
Bank heist, which I've talked about. Learning Vincent's a werewolf, where we witness Vincent's voice actor's Golden Globe performance.
Geralt.
You know me?
It's me.
The vampire brothel where I regretfully ended up having to kill Regis's girl, but not before I boned. And finally, having to decide whether Alvin's mom should be Triss or Shani. Now look, I know this might cause some of you in the comments to go after me, but I chose Shani. Calm down, let me explain. To me, Alvin's mom should 1, not walk around Temeria on a Tuesday afternoon like she just got out of the club, and 2, not be using our son for magic experiments. Shani is a loving, caring medic who I thought would overall be the better mom. I didn't really feel a deep connection with either of the two, and I prefer having to work for my woman. Both of these chicks just toss themselves at you without any effort on your part. I mean, we had sex with Triss like 3 times already in the game thus far, and Shani is like that over-obsessive, annoying girlfriend that you probably should have cut off after the second date but got way too deep.
Okay, give me a kiss.
CDPR did a great job designing the male characters in this game, but it's pretty clear there were a lot of virgins on staff, okay? So to close this act out, you meet up with Triss and Luvarden, and in my case Yavin, at the inn and magically teleport to the Salamander base.
Akimbaga Hara.
You fight the Salamandra, kill the Professor, run away from a giant Kikimor, escape out of that tunnel by the dike that Luvarden always mysteriously stood by, then run into Ada, who you find out is trying to overthrow her father while he's gone, ultimately being used as a pawn by the Order. Wow, that's a lot. But don't worry, because the next act is the act I think cemented this game as an all-time RPG classic. It's the chapter I desperately needed to keep my brain from exploding due to all the information I just had injected in it. There was so much going on with the Salamandra, the Scoia'tael, the Order, Northern Realm politics, with Ada, with Radovid, the Triss, Shani, and Alvin stuff, so much that things started to become hard to keep track of. The Trade Quarter is just an extension of the Temple Quarter and much more lifeless and poorly optimized version. I needed something fresh and new, something to keep my attention, a change of pace, and Act 4's complete disconnect from the story was exactly the vacation I needed. amount of area in Act 4 is probably quite similar to the size you have in Act 2. Yet, the number of quests and things to do in Act 4 is much less. In Act 4, you're meant to breathe. You're meant to take in your environment, without the subconscious burden of a quest marker, a gang hideout, or a tower 200 meters away. Just the environment. It's your getaway from the main story, from the world, ensuring you're well rested and prepared for the big finish to come. Breaks like these to breathe seem to be missing from today's games. Don't you think we need more getaways like this? In a lot of open world games today, we're jumping marker to marker, usually seconds away. I suppose the onus is more on you, the player, to know when is a good time to step aside from the question marks and venture off on your own. But regardless, damn did they get it right in The Witcher. Traversing through wide open area to the tune of some relaxing background melodies, older games just had this stuff figured out. Your stay at Murky Waters and its neighboring areas is an indefinite one. It's on you to let the game know when you've started overstaying your welcome. But don't leave until you're absolutely ready. However, this isn't completely a getaway vacation. Yes, you're somewhere refreshingly new and foreign, but the place has a few of its own problems. You find yourself meeting the locals, soon realizing that though you might be escaping your own troubles for a while, these people have troubles of their own. You need to resolve a struggle between two races that upsets the goddess of the land, alleviate a romantic tragedy to the best of your ability, and assist a clan of starving elves, despite their ungratefulness. But those were the major storylines of the area. So much of this place's magic resided in the little things. I remember helping out the poor man and his son working on the bridge, and I know this might sound weird to some of you, but I thought about what life must be like for them. Here in the middle of nowhere, tirelessly working on a bridge, yet not being able to make significant progress on it because of the tiny gnomes bullying them. They're obviously poor and have little, but I remember one afternoon just walking past them, I saw the pair of them sitting with each other having lunch at their lunch table. And, it just really struck me. I don't know why. Maybe I shouldn't have felt bad for these two at all. And similarly, I remember walking up to the hermit in the other corner of the map, and he's just harmlessly hammering away on his den, and I thought he'd be like some old prick, but he was actually one of the nicest and most welcoming NPCs in the game.
Who is the Lady of the Lake?
I know her to be a goddess. At times I see her dressed in white, traversing the fields through morning fog, her bare feet stepping lightly over the dewy grass.
Do you like her?
I love her. I believe the lady is not of this world. Mysteriously, she affects the entire area, safeguarding its people and granting them abundance. Yet her influence is subtle, and she never imposes her power.
Intriguing.
He was perfectly content living in solitude. You could tell he was quite thoughtful from how he appreciated the Lady of the Lake and the subtle effects that she has on the area. The hermit, the innocent father and his son, the Lady of the Lake, and the mostly peaceful Vadianoi all give off a serene feel to the area that go along with its looks and its sounds. Berengar's whole storyline to me felt a bit forced, and I didn't mind the character models in this game aside from the over-copy-pasting of them, Coleman's head looking way too big for his body, and also how scary Berengar looked. Like Alvin, there was something about constantly being reminded of his existence throughout the game that felt contrived and lessened my interest of him. It was cool to see him come back and help you versus Javed, and I suppose it was also somewhat interesting to know that not all Witchers are proud Witchers, but that's about it. One more thing I want to mention about this area is that there's also an innkeeper who apparently spoils the complete story of Ciri from the books.
You must know some interesting stories.
Sure, I'm an innkeeper.
The vacation comes to a close when we see Rayla, and after being caught in the middle of a small battle between the Order and the Scoia'tael, we set sail back to Old Vizima, where Dandelion reminds us there's still a story to finish.
We need to get back to Vizima. Triss might have some ideas.
Vizima it is, then.
After you.
Sailing away from the lakeside was a misty-eyed moment for me. Seeing more of the Order forming up to continue disrupting the tranquility here, yet sailing away unable to do anything about it, was a powerful reminder that you can't solve every problem in Temeria, much less Vizima, much less Murky Waters. You're only a Witcher. Act 5 consisted of guerrilla warfare in a burning Vizima, and a lot of that. Obviously, combat isn't the highlight of this game, so it shouldn't be a surprise to you that this was probably my least favorite part of the game, and it also felt a bit rushed to me. The Swamp Cemetery was just a mosh pit of monsters with a couple crypts. Getting high valuable loot at the end of any game is pretty meaningless unless you can keep doing quests afterwards, which you can't in The Witcher 1. The fight with Ada is supposed to be pretty epic to anyone who's read the short story in The Last Wish, so it was kind of laughable to play Ring Around the Coffin for 5 minutes, but I don't know how they could have changed that. The best thing I could think of is Crypt Hide and Go Seek, which is pretty similar to the book, but isn't probably all that much more entertaining than Crypt Tag, if at all. After Ada, you're shoved through a tube of enemies until you reach Javed.
Your turn, Javed.
I learned long ago only to rely on myself. Before I kill you, you must know Triss Merigold is being dragged to the laboratories as we speak. Torture will follow. Everyone breaks sooner or later. It's merely a question of time. What say you, Witcher? Still the indifferent tough guy?
You're bluffing. You send assassins after me, conjure up beautiful words, threaten to kill me. But you're scared to death and simply postponing the inevitable.
Alar Zar Bintala.
I needed to think.
Coward, you know the punishment you face. You can evade it by slaying Geralt of Rivia. You may earn my mercy.
Your threats don't impress me anymore. Prepare, sorcerer. I've come here for you.
I liked the location of the fight. It was a Salamandra alchemist laboratory, and it was cool to see Berengar come help you out, but as I mentioned, Berengar felt a bit contrived to me, and I didn't think Javed was all that memorable of a villain. But it was still an intense fight, as he's probably the strongest opponent you'll face all game, and somewhat of a challenge even on easy mode. And finally, that brings us to the Epilogue. Like I mentioned earlier, battling Siegfried was an incredibly emotional moment for me. I don't think he knew what the bigger plans were for the Order. Maybe he did, I don't know. But regardless, I chose my path, and that path crossed his. He was a chivalrous knight, a good man, and I wished our steel didn't have to clash, but that's how it played out. The rest of the Epilogue was more combat pipelines in Act 5 until you get to the Zugel, and I suppose the Zugel fight is a good time to talk about the monsters as a whole in The Witcher 1. The variety of monsters in The Witcher 3, aside from the endless amounts of drowners, had me glued and immersed in that game. There are good things and there are bad things about the monsters in The Witcher 1. On the one hand, some of the monsters are absolutely terrifying to look at and add an H.P. Lovecraft-like tone to whatever area they're in, and that's a great thing. Each monster boss, if you will, is unique and feels different. That's also a great thing. You don't want something like Breath of the Wild where each boss feels the same and thus makes those, what are supposed to be epic duels, disappointing ones. Unfortunately, I don't think the monsters in this game were all that memorable. Again, take this as someone coming from The Witcher 3. Obviously, I was spoiled with stunning, memorable monsters before playing this game, so my take is skewed. But either way, it's good to know that they greatly improved this element of the game later on in the trilogy. Once we kill the Zugel, it's only a few more enemies until we reach Shock in the Cloister.
Bloody arse! He got me!
You're bleeding heavily. Not good.
Go on. The Squirtel will care for me. Kill that bastard to Eldersburg. Go!
I'll come back for you.
Behold my people. They feast at my table, find warmth at my fire, and glow with happiness to be separated from the turmoil of war.
You're deluded if you think the sight of women and children will make me leave you alone.
I do not intend to deceive you. The white frost approaches, a cataclysm that will bury the world beneath snow and ice. Each night, I dream of icy wastelands and the death of the old civilizations.
I've heard Ithlina's prophecy.
The cataclysm is unavoidable. Kings prefer to wage local wars to expand their influence, while elves have become terrorists fighting for a lost cause. The world needs a savior, a man of the moment, someone to kindle the flame in people's hearts.
Ha! You, savior of the world?
Come, I will show you something. Humans are weak, frail, and inclined toward evil. I shall create a new man, perfect, tempered in the eternal fire.
Finished? Because if you are...
You doubt me? I do not blame you. I had my doubts too. Yet now, my vision is strong.
We're now in the vision of Ithlin's prophecy, the era of the Wolf's Blizzard.
Behold, the scales will fall from your eyes, and you will understand.
Juggler's tricks. I expected more.
You think this an illusion? Oh no, Geralt, it's nothing of the sort.
Where are we?
See for yourself. Follow me. Now that you have seen the ice-encased towers of Vizima, do you understand?
You're rambling to Aldersburg. What do you want?
This is the future. The white frost has destroyed human civilization. This is the end of time. Do we lose heart, surrender? Never. We can yet avoid our fate.
Save your rhetoric for the plebs.
Understand. The Order and Salamandra acted only to save humanity.
Every criminal claims a higher cause.
You lack humility. Time for a lesson in some.
Here it's another tube of enemies, revisiting friends and foes from your adventure along the way until you get to Jacques.
Now, do you see the need to act, whatever the price? Geralt, open your eyes, open your mind.
They treat people like you at St. Lebioda's hospital.
By pursuing me, you proved me right. You faced the dangers that humanity faces, and survived.
Jacques de Aldersburg, your dream is over.
Patience. You may yet change your mind. Imagine thousands traversing an icy wasteland. Could you defend them? You and a handful of witches ridden with doubt, like Berengar? Impossible. Only the greater brothers can do that, but they need to be taught and led. They need you.
I also have an offer. Surrender. Withdraw your mutants. Humble yourself before the king. You'll save many lives.
How confident you seem. A painful lesson awaits.
You get to Jacques, you fight him until he's absolutely helpless, and then the King of the Wild Hunt appears.
We meet again, Wolf. Have you fulfilled your destiny?
Salamandra is dying, soon to be a memory.
Salamandra means nothing. It was but a particle of chaos, the tool of the madman you just slew. Your past, your destiny, the reasons for your resurrection, all remain unknown.
Words, words, words.
You've always used them ably to mask uncertainty and fear. I once promised I would follow you.
Gibberish, Spectre. Tell me what you want or disappear.
Reflect on your deeds, Witcher. I stood near you when you arrived at Kaer Morhen, an omen of its downfall. I observed as you judged the villagers of the outskirts, leaving only blood and fire behind you. You passed through Vizima like a sword through a heart, accusing others, destroying lives, mindful of nothing but your own purpose, to be achieved whatever the means. You slaughtered dozens with your witch's sword. You threw gold to the Scoia'tael, fueling new massacres. You left Vizima in chaos, only to bring destruction upon murky waters. Every one of your decisions brought further devastation. Each choice you made led to greater evil. How did you feel when your elven friends set fire to Vizima and slaughtered Dwan?
Stop.
Do not deny it, Witcher. You are my greatest champion, a perfect means of destruction. Wherever you walk, death and chaos follow. Now, as it was years ago, accept it. Do not fight it. Give up to me yet another man you destroyed.
Jacques de Aldersberg is mine.
You dare to oppose me? I sense your weakness as your life seeps from your wounds. With every drop, death draws nearer. You stand no chance against me. Yield to me.
Never. This is between him and me.
You aim to kill him anyway.
True, but for my reasons, and they're nothing to you. Clear off while you can. Go before it's too late.
You want to fight me? So be it. Your flight from death ends here. Draw your sword.
I was afraid you'd suggest chess.
There's this motif throughout the game of whether Geralt himself is a monster or not. And I'm not here to debate the merits or the philosophy of what makes you a good person or not. but I think it's reasonable to postulate Geralt is a good man with good intentions at heart. Salamandra were bad people who raped and killed and stole and deserved to be punished. But I think the real ethical questioning arises if you killed Ada and or Vincent. A lot of you guys might not know this, but Count Duet will actually come to your aid in battle at the end of the game if you killed both Ada and Vincent.
Surprised? We're not so different after all. I am your hatred for monsters.
What are you going on about?
You detest monsters as much as I do. You saw through both Ada and Vincent. That demands respect.
Go to hell, Duet.
Despite your insults, I shall help you battle the Grand Master. Though in the grand scheme of things, it matters little which of you dies. Either way, there will be one monster less.
Notice what he said at the end. Either way, there will be one monster less. This is the game pretty much telling you you screwed up, and to remind you that Witchers actually take more pride in reversing curses than outright killing the monsters. You obviously can't save the world, but were you at least an ethical Witcher? We brush away the King of the Wild Hunt, kill Jacques, then return back to King Foltest for our handsome reward. And of course, as we walk out, we kill the would-be King Foltest assassinator, who turns out to be a Witcher. And that's The Witcher 1! So I think I pretty much said all there is for me to say, but I'll give one final closing thought. I think this game is an all-time classic RPG. I've said that already multiple times throughout this. To me, it was the supporting cast, not the main characters, that stole the show. As a result, to me, it's no surprise how well CDPR was able to scale that up in The Witcher 3 and make its massive world feel meaningful through each one of its smaller pieces that made its whole. You can see from the get-go that CDPR had talent, but they just needed that extra little polish. So, I mean, they make interactive art, and I can't wait to play The Witcher 2 for the first time. Thanks for reliving this game with me, and as I mentioned throughout, I'd really love to hear your thoughts. I look forward to replying to what you have to say, and take care, my friend.